You need to understand why park rangers fear the Appalachian Wampus Cat. Because the ones who work the Talladega backcountry in Cleburne County, Alabama, aren't afraid of it the way people are afraid of stories. They are afraid of it the way people are afraid of things they have personally documented and cannot explain. In May of 2016, a 12-year veteran ranger named Willa Pruett drove into a remote section of the Shoal Creek drainage, deep inside the Talladega National Forest, the southernmost reach of the Appalachian Mountains before the range flattens into the Alabama piedmont, to assess a predator kill on private land bordering the forest boundary. The Wampus Cat was a legend she'd spent 12 years explaining to landowners who didn't know what a bobcat sounds like when it screams in a hollow. She had a prepared answer. She'd given it a lot. She crouched at the eastern fence line and read the tracks in the red clay. Nothing matched any species in the National Forest's field catalog. The bone fractures on the nearby deer carcass cannot be produced by any known predator through impact alone. And when the screech tore out of the hardwood stand to the northwest, high and serrated, hovering between a mountain lion's call and a woman in serious distress, Willa did something she had never done in 12 years of field work. She backed up without turning around. Every bird in the canopy lifted at once and flew toward it, not away, toward. A doe ran toward the stand, deliberate, unhurried, like something following a pull it didn't question. Everything alive on that ridge oriented to that sound like a compass finding north. And Willa Pruett was the only living thing moving the other way. Her name is Willa Pruett. This happened on a ridge above Shoal Creek in May of 2016. And what those eyes cost her is the part nobody talks about. Willa Pruett, 35, had ranged this section of the Talladega for 12 years and knew it the way most people know their own neighborhood. Every drainage, every ridge, every species shift, from the chestnut oak belt at elevation down into the tulip poplar and sweet gum in the creek bottoms. She carried a GPS unit with a cracked screen she'd never replaced, a hand-drawn grid she trusted over the digital overlay, and a Motorola set to the district frequency out of Heflin. The mechanical pencil in her chest pocket had been there for 11 of those 12 years. Never lost it. The seasonal crew called her the Ledger, not because she was cold, but because she wrote what she saw and drew a line under it. Mid-May heat on the ridge smelled like dry quartzite and old leaf litter, and underneath both, the faint mineral pull of Shoal Creek, 200 feet below. She'd known where she was by those two smells since her first season. A landowner named Delbert Odom had reported a predator kill 3 days prior, and Willa had the report drafted in her head before she reached the access road. Cougar drag, species determination, done before dark. Before she'd left, Delbert said something she didn't write down. "Don't be up there after dark. Whatever's been at my fence line doesn't come in the daytime." Standing on the ridge with her flagging tape, she thought about that now for no reason she could name. The tape snapped in a wind she couldn't feel on her face. Both red-tailed hawks lifted off the thermal above the hardwood stand to the northwest, simultaneously, as if something below had become more relevant than the air above it. She noted it. Hawks cleared northwest thermal, 5:10 p.m. The Ledger had never recorded a detail it didn't eventually need. All the tape hung still now, every strip angled northwest, in a wind she still couldn't feel on her face. She walked toward the fence line and didn't write that down. The red clay on the eastern side of the fence line held moisture from last week's rain. Press a thumb in, and the impression held clean for 20 seconds. Willa had read hundreds of prints in soil like this. She knew exactly how much displacement meant how much weight. She set her clipboard down and unclipped her measuring tape. The track stopped her mid-count. 3 inches deep in soil that should register half that for a large cougar. She measured the stride. Wrong. Too wide at the hip, too close at the heel. And the toe impressions were wrong in a way that took her a full 10 seconds to name, because the answer her brain kept producing didn't belong in the National Forest's field catalog or anywhere else in documented North American wildlife. 6. Not 5. Not 4 plus a dew claw. 6 full weight-bearing digits, arranged in a configuration that suggested the front and rear limbs had evolved for entirely different purposes. As if whatever made these tracks had been assembled from 2 separate biological briefs that never consulted each other. 15 feet further, the rear track pairs disappeared entirely. Only the front set continued, pressed an additional half-inch deeper, weight shifted fully forward. Like the animal stood up and walked that way. The deer carcass sat at the end of those 2-legged prints. It didn't smell right. A predator kill should smell like copper iron. Thick, immediate. She'd processed it dozens of times and knew the smell the way she knew the creek drainage below her. What came off this carcass was older than that. Wet quartzite and struck matches in a damp room. She recorded it on a voice memo and did not replay it. The kill was too clean in the wrong places and too destroyed in the wrong places. And the border between those 2 zones was not a line any animal in the Talladega field catalog draws. She moved to the femur, crouched, measured. The long bones were shattered from the outside in. Not a bite, not a claw. The fracture geometry was uniform, blunt force, applied from multiple directions simultaneously, the kind of compression a hydraulic press produces, not an animal. No canid or felid on record does this through impact alone. She started a second voice memo and described the fracture pattern in the only language she had. Measured, professional, precise. She did not record the part where her grip had started going sideways. Then the screech tore out of the hardwood stand to the northwest. High and serrated, hovering somewhere between a mountain lion's call and a woman in serious distress. Willa's hand went to her radio and stopped there, because what stopped her wasn't the sound. Every bird in the canopy lifted at once and flew toward it. Not away. Toward. A doe broke from the brush 30 feet downslope and ran toward the stand, not startled, not fleeing, moving with the deliberate pace of something following a pull it didn't question. The insects didn't quiet. They got louder. Everything on that ridge was orienting to that call like a compass needle finding north, and Willa Pruett was the only living thing moving the other way. She keyed her radio. Reported an anomalous wildlife vocalization, unclassified, at grid coordinate 33.4821 degrees north, 85.6432 degrees west. Dispatch acknowledged, asked if she needed a second unit. She said no. She wasn't lying. She just hadn't finished processing what she was looking at. The static after she released the transmit button had a faint, rhythmic quality she had never heard on this frequency before, almost like breathing. She told herself it was ridge interference from the chestnut oak canopy. She told herself that, and went back to the kill site for one more measurement, because the ledger does not file preliminary reports. And she did not look at the hardwood stand, because some part of her had already understood that looking at it directly was a decision she couldn't walk back. Delbert had said, "Don't be up there after dark." She had enough documentation right now for a preliminary report. Anomalous tracks. Unclassified vocalization. 2-person follow-up recommended. Nobody in Heflin would question it. She did not leave. She kept having to recheck her GPS coordinates. Not because she doubted the unit. She'd trusted that cracked screen for 12 years. She rechecked because the tree line looked wrong. The chestnut oaks at the burn perimeter, the ones she had used as a sightline on this ridge since her first season, appeared to lean inward at the tops in a way that contradicted every survey she had done in this stand. She knew the trees weren't moving. She also knew what she was seeing. Both facts sat in her head simultaneously, and the pressure of holding both at once was doing something to her inner ear. Pressurized, like altitude change in a plane banking wrong. She reached for her mechanical pencil, and her grip didn't land cleanly, off by a quarter inch, the way a hand goes when circulation drops. The pressure feedback in her fingertips felt muted, like sensation traveling through insulation that wasn't there an hour ago. She put the pencil in her chest pocket and started a voice memo instead. Her own voice in the playback came back, sounding like it was coming from one room over. Whatever's been at my fence line doesn't come. In the daytime. She was 40 minutes past the point where she should have been in the truck with the engine running. She was aware of this the same way she was aware she still didn't have a complete report. Both facts competed for priority, and the one that kept losing was the one that should have been winning. She went back to the kill site for the femur measurement she'd shortchanged. That was why she saw what she'd missed. Every major load-bearing bone. Same fracture geometry. Same uniform compression from multiple simultaneous directions. Not a bite sequence. Not a claw series. Something had applied force to this animal the way a machine applies force. Evenly, completely, from every angle at once. The fracture pattern was the answer to the wrong question. She now knew what had killed the deer, and knowing it had opened something considerably worse. What is something that can do this? And what does it do when it isn't killing deer? She recorded a voice memo describing the geometry. Precise, measured, professional. She did not record the part about her grip. The memo cut off mid-sentence. Battery showed 71%. It had been 89% 20 minutes ago. She rebooted the phone, started a new memo, and talked faster. Something shifted in the hardwood stand to the northwest. Not a sound, a movement caught in peripheral vision before she could turn toward it. She turned. Nothing. The stand was still in a way the Talladega backcountry had never been still for her in 12 years. Not peaceful. Still. Held still. The difference between a room that is empty and a room where something has just stopped moving. She looked at the surveyor's tape, hanging in the chestnut oaks behind her. Every strip pointed northwest. Same angle. Same direction. In a wind she still couldn't feel on her face. Her truck was 200 yards north on the access road. Clear path. Nothing between her and it. She had walked that route on the way in the same way she had walked every access corridor on this district, cataloging it without thinking, the way the ledger catalogs everything. The temperature dropped between one breath and the next, not gradually, in the span of a single exhale, as if the air itself had changed shifts. She felt it on her forearms in one specific moment. One breath, it was a May evening in the Talladega Highlands. The next, it was something else, and she could not find the word for what. She should leave right now. Preliminary report. 2-person follow-up in daylight. Nobody in Heflin would question it. She did not leave. The ledger does not file incomplete reports, and the part of her brain responsible for that decision had gone very quiet. Quieter than the ridge, quieter than the held still hardwood stand, and she could not tell anymore whether that was 12 years of professional discipline or something this ridge was doing to the part of her that makes decisions. The ridge had gone dark the way it only goes dark when the canopy holds the last of the sky back. Not night yet, but the light that comes before night, the kind that flattens depth perception and makes distances wrong in ways that only matter when you need them right. Willa was 200 yards from her truck, GPS reading correct. She knew where she was. The migraine hit without warning. Not the dull pressure kind, the ocular kind, the kind that opens a jagged crescent of shimmering light across the center of her vision and stays. 2 in her life, both in her 20s, both after serious dehydration. 2 liters today. She cataloged this with the part of her brain still capable of cataloging, and that part was getting smaller. She stopped, pressed her back against a tulip poplar, palms flat against the bark. The aura pulsed and contracted around her central vision, like a lens pulling tight. She waited. It would pass. Then something moved between the hardwood trunks at the northwest edge of the stand. The match head smell came first, same as the kill site, but concentrated, the way a smell changes when you move from the edge of a source to directly above it. Then sound, not the screech from before, something lower and rhythmic, the resonant frequency of a very large thing displacing air at close range. Not a vocalization, a displacement. The difference between hearing an animal call and hearing the air move around something breathing. Then the cold, directional. Off the northwest stand like open freezer air aimed at her face. Then her heartbeat was in her back molars, and she stopped cataloging. It moved out of the tree line slowly. Not fast, not lurching. It moved with the rhythmic confidence of an animal that has never had a reason to hurry, deliberate past the point of arrogance, because arrogance implies awareness of other things. This animal did not appear aware of other things. It moved like the only thing on the ridge that had ever mattered. Through the migraine aura, she got it in pieces. Never whole. Her brain reached for a size comparison and couldn't complete it. The way a scale tips past the point where it should stop and keeps tipping. Too large in too many directions at once. Shoulder height wrong by a margin her 12 years of fieldwork had no category for. The geometry of its movement didn't resolve the way biological motion should. Every time the aura cleared for a half second, the animal was in a position that didn't follow from where it had been. Not teleporting. Moving in a way her visual processing couldn't track. As if its locomotion operated on a different physical grammar than anything she had measured in these mountains. Its coat absorbed the pre-dark light rather than reflecting it. Matte. Dense. The color of old charcoal in a fire pit after hard rain. The kind that no longer looks like it was ever burning. The aura pulsed, cleared. Half a second of unobstructed vision. The eyes. Green-yellow. Reflective the way deer eyes catch headlights. But the light came from inside, not the surface, as if the source were behind them rather than in front, and they were at a height that should not have been possible if the animal was on 4 legs. Not slightly elevated. Wrong by 5 or 6 feet. The kind of wrong that says something specific about posture, about what that body was doing in that moment. And she could not finish the calculation before the aura closed and took her central vision with it. In the last clear interval, she saw the surveyor's tape in the chestnut oaks behind her. Every strip pulled taut, pointed northwest, toward the stand, toward where those eyes were. It had been pointing here since she arrived on this ridge. Her thumb found the radio transmit button by muscle memory. She produced no words. The Motorola dropped from 58% to 0 in one breath. No warning, no alert, just 0. She went down on one knee, then fully down. She did not lose consciousness. She lost something else. Something that left the way a sound leaves a room, present then absent, with no moment she could identify when it stopped. The insects started again, then the creak from the drainage below. The ridge reassembled itself around something that was no longer in it. Whatever had stood in that hardwood stand took something with it that Anniston Regional would not have a name for. Something so specific in its absence that it would be 6 days before she could put it in writing, in the same measured language she had used for 12 years, in the only report of her career she would ever mark preliminary. Delbert Odom himself found her, not his son, not a hand from the property. He noticed the Forest Service truck still on the access road at first light and walked the ridge for 19 minutes before he found her. Willa was upright against the tulip poplar trunk, dead Motorola in her hand, field notebook open to a page of GPS coordinates written over themselves in layers, same coordinates, pressed harder each time, as if repetition would make them mean something different. Not unconscious, not panicked. Sitting in the specific stillness of someone who has been in one position for a very long time, watching the Talladega Ridge reassemble itself into something she used to recognize. Delbert didn't say anything. He sat down on a root 3 feet away and waited. That detail, the sitting, the waiting, is the part I keep returning to. Delbert Odom has grazed cattle on this ridge since his father showed him how. He did not call 911 immediately. He did not try to move her. He sat down and waited, the way you wait with someone who has seen something the words haven't caught up to yet. And I think on some level, Delbert already knew what she had seen. He just had a different name for it. The Shoal Creek drainage at dawn in May is full of sound. Wood thrushes in the canopy, the creek audible 200 feet below, insects back on their shifts. The red-tailed hawks were on the same thermal above the same hardwood stand. Everything that had oriented itself toward that stand the night before was back in its correct position. The ridge was itself again. Willa could hear all of it. She cataloged every source without effort, without sentiment, the way she always had. She could not see green. Not poorly, not differently. The color had been replaced in her visual field by a flat, static-laced gray that flickered at the edges, like a television cycling between channels with no signal. Her optometrist called it visual snow syndrome with chromatic loss. Rare, neurological, no established cause. She was treated at Anniston Regional and discharged in 48 hours. Her incident report, filed 6 days later, is factual and measured. It lists the predator as unclassified, outside documented Alabama range parameters for any known species, the only report in 12 years without a species determination. She marked it preliminary. She has never filed the follow-up. What she has never told anyone, not her supervisor, not the wildlife biologist who called twice, not her sister who drove from Birmingham, is what she noticed last spring. She was flagging a burn perimeter on a different section of the Talladega. Same surveyor's tape she had always used. She reached into her vest, felt the familiar weight of the roll, and hung it in the chestnut oaks the way she had 100 times. The mechanical pencil was in her chest pocket. She had never lost it. She could not see the color of the tape. She knew what she was holding by the weight of it in her hands. She hung it anyway. And when she stepped back, every strip had caught in a wind she couldn't feel on her face. All of it angled northwest, toward a hardwood stand 2 ridges over. She noted the wind direction, drew a line under it, walked back to her truck. In these mountains, the things that find you in the dark aren't looking for you. They're just not used to being looked at.